seen Greg on New England Cable News, NECN, for, I think, almost as long as NECN has been on. I think as long as I've been watching.
It's been about 16 years, but they've been on about 25 at this point.
Is it 25? Wow.
Something like that.
And prior to that, he was on Channel 7, which was WNEV at the time, now HDH, and WBZ, Channel 4 before that, and he worked in Providence at their television station. He also worked down in... Yeah, he also worked in Fort Myers, Florida, in Tampa, St. Pete, and I'm sure at this time of year he's wondering why he came back to Massachusetts, where he grew up. And he actually began his journalism career at the Boston Globe, of all places. I'm sure you'll have some questions for Greg on that. Personally, I've always loved my conversations with Greg. My job at the Archdiocese had me at a lot of the press events that we've had, and he has many insights about some of the things that the church does and the way we try to get news coverage, or the way we sometimes get bad coverage when we want to get good coverage. And I've always enjoyed just listening to his perspective. And Greg and I had a recent conversation at one of these events where he was just sharing with me how he loves listening to some of the Catholic radio programs on his commute, like many of us. And I enjoyed hearing from Greg, and I asked if he'd be willing to share those at one of these events down in the future, and he said yes, so I took him up on that. So please join me and give a warm welcome to Greg Wayland.
It's an enormous honor to be here. I feel a clarion call right now to be more involved. Let me tell you how I came to know about Catholic radio. Catholic radio for me was kind of nothing that I really thought about or knew about until I was driving down Route 128 once, heading for the exit that I take to get to my work, which is in Newton, right over the Needham line, near Channel 5. All of our old management, our original management, were old Channel 5 people. And I saw the billboard, Catholic Radio 1060. So I immediately began to fish around on AM radio, and I think I got some daytime program. Very much in a very topical, intensive environment right now, to which there have been very few Catholic voices. As I continued to listen and knew that this was essentially a network, and I was hearing things from Ann Arbor and so forth, and coming over here, I listened every night driving home. I listened to Catholic Connection, in which theology and all manner of things. Tonight it was Father Vincent Serpa, who some of you might have been listening to it as I was coming in, Father Vincent Serpa, and Patrick Coffin, who's an immensely professional broadcaster and knowledgeable. And these people have an enormous command of theology and scripture. I'm astounded by them. And then and all the other people who were involved with that. So I was very impressed, and I was learning things, and I was feeling myself becoming more well-grounded in my faith. Then in the mornings, I always listened to Teresa Tomeo, a former broadcaster. She worked in commercial TV in Detroit. Talks about her own conversion, essentially. She's a newscaster, a very professional one, dealing with these hot-button issues that are coming up in the media all the time, but what we get through the strainer of the secular media, of which I am a member. And I can tell you, you can ask me, I can tell you about some of the battles I've had, some of the wrenching situations I've found myself in. And it wasn't always that way. So if I speak of a conversion in my case, really, I was born Catholic. I was born in St. Anne's Parish. I was baptized there. I'm from St. Anne's. I go to high school in South Boston. I go to college. I win a speech scholarship to Suffolk University. I talked my way into college. At the time, at the time, the New England Speech Festival was held at Suffolk University. And Suffolk had, if you won, you had a gold, a silver, and a bronze medals. And it was for original oratory, dramatic presentation, and so forth. Now, I'd gone to Gate of Heaven High School. It was the devil's island of the Catholic school system. If you couldn't get in any place else, that's where you want. I mean, that's not fair. I was just back to my 50th reunion. We all had a great time, but we were a small class, mostly girls, tough girls, South Boston girls, fearsome people. And we had a boys basketball team only toward the latter stages, but before that, all the guys going to the girls basketball games and cheering, and unnerving the other team. But that was all we did in the way of. But it was a great, the top floor of a grammar school. And really, I wasn't a very good student, but there was a sister there named Sister Mary Silverius. She was the moving force behind the oratory stuff in the Boston Archdiocese. So I wound up the Boston Archdiocese champion with her help. We fought like tooth and nail. I was telling her, I want to do it this way. She said tomato, I said tomato, but we won. And as a consequence, I went to the speech festival and I won that and won a 4-year full boat ride. to Suffolk University. Over the course of that, I was becoming more engaged in the church. I couldn't tell you exactly what point that happened. There's still been a number of battles, I would say, in my life, personally and otherwise, as we all have. But nonetheless, I found a deeper calling. And as I became more involved with the media, I realized I was in the heart of the thicket. I was involved in something that gradually, the great writer Flannery O'Connor says you have to push as hard against the culture that's pushing against you. And I felt myself being pushed. Point now, over a period of time, I'd become very interested, engaged in the whole, in my faith and in the way my faith was fraught and embattled, really. I was raised in the Baltimore Catechism, as were all members of my family. I've seen within my own family a great deal of drift, people who continue to pray and so forth, but don't practice the sacraments, all those types of things that I hear about listening to the Catholic Connection when people call in. And Catholic radio seems to be getting stronger by virtue of everything that, I'm delighted to I don't think I've met you yet, Jim, but I'm delighted and honored to be in your presence because it's become more topical, it's become more vigorous. I grew up in the era of Fulton Sheen, the era of triumph, the church was triumphant, when the movies were going my way, or the Catholic Church was kind of seen to be riding high, but it was all kind of superficial, because when the rubber hit the road in the 60s, the church was suddenly in battle, and all the confusion that followed the council and so forth. So there was enormous confusion, and I think a lot of the Catholics who came along at that time, who are now the Gen Xers or older than that, have had no formation whatsoever. So they can't lose what they don't have. I got to ask, are we covering this now as a story anymore? Are there two sides to this story? Or are we advocates? Because increasingly, the political culture in Boston and in Massachusetts, we kind of know where they're at on this. And if you're in the media and you're reporting on this, I no longer feel as if there's two sides to that particular story, unless I'm listening to Catholic radio. And here's some of the excellent reporting, very informative and vigorous by Teresa Tomeo and others. And on that issue and on all these hot-button issues, I feel as if it becomes harder and harder inside, working inside the media, to maintain that there are two sides to these stories. There's this river that's running down the stream. And you get all these busy beavers like you, Hefner, and Planned Parenthood, so over building dams. And basically, that river is running right through your living room right now. I mean, this foul stream you had over here is basically going right through your living room right now. And it's considered the norm. It's considered where we're supposed to go. And the news, we don't lead, we follow, in a sense. We are reporting on this cultural development, and if you watch the Today Show or anything like that, it becomes more and more obvious to me that I'm a countercultural person in a countercultural religion, working and living and existing within the battles that I might fight personally, as an individual Catholic, trying to witness to the faith. But basically, it's becoming a very tough environment, and that's why Catholic radio, Catholic media have become so important. And I thank you for letting me talk about it. So the challenge for Catholic radio, and I think it's winning to some extent, because I listen to the Catholic Connection. I hear people say, hey, I just happened to find you on the dial. I think this is all, we believe in conversion, that slow turning away from one thing and toward another. And basically, I don't want to say that we have God on our side, but plainly, I mean, we kind of do. We have to have the faith that what we're doing, by however large or smaller increments, is going to prevail. Well, we got to look at the long game. This is not going to happen overnight, and programming for radio and for all media is very expensive, and it's amazing what has happened with what Jim has done, and what Mother Angelica has done is astounding, what she has done.